Hello, Kel Senpai here. I'm going to show you a couple things about Conan Exiles Age of Calamitous builds with armor and a little bit of weapon choice, not all the weapons because there's too many. But I've been asked this a lot of times, so I figured I'd just make a video and refer to the video. It'll save time, because it takes a long time to go through all that stuff. Alright. So here I am in my game, and I spawned some stuff. So I'm just going to go through some basic ideas. When it comes to builds, this is a common build for a lot of PvP types, or just tanky brawler types. Like, max strength, max vitality is always going to be good, because hit as hard as you can, take as many hits as you can. Then, with the changes to grit recently, having a lot of grit's good. So 20 is what I usually always went for before because of the 10% regen for each tick was really nice, and that was all I ever needed. Now I kind of want more grit if I can spare it, just because you run out doing everything and you need it. So I always go for the 10 agility if I can because of the first perk, sprinting drains less stamina, which goes right into the grit need, which is very useful. Anything past that for agility is worthless. Like, all of these other perks aren't going to matter for shit, so I recommend not even going for them. So if you have something to dump, like I have 12 right now, because I don't have anywhere else to put it that would be very useful. Like, I could put it into encumbrance, I guess, but agility does make you roll just a slight bit faster and give you a little bit of armor, so I was like, whatever, it's fine to go slightly over 10 there. But say you went this build. This is a tanky in-your-face hit things build. I am actually wearing the armor already that's good for this. One of the armors anyway. The medium Northwatch, because it's medium armor, so you roll a little better than heavy armor, and less stamina drain, and it has decent armor. And I also have the backpack on. Backpack gives plus 30 encumbrance, which is really great, because you really only need like 20 if you're being mindful of what you're carrying, but 30 is good too, and it's your head slot, so plus 30 to anything for a head slot's amazing. But what I like is that it gets you to 84% armor reduction with this armor, which is about where I stop caring about armor, because 84% is where it starts tapering off, where it's really hard to increase armor anymore. You can get up to 86 and stuff like that, but it doesn't matter that much, and it's harder to do, so you're going to be spending more of what you could be applying to something else. For example, the helmet. If I had the helmet on to get to 86, which I think it would, then I wouldn't have the plus 30 to encumbrance, which is obviously more valuable than 2% damage reduction. And I'm able to get to that because of the Knight's Plating modification that is more recent. That stuff's actually a little bit OP, but it adds like 75 or something armor to each piece. So I have that on everything. Like, there's no reason not to have that on any armor. I, for some reason, think I even have it on my backpack, but it really doesn't matter for the backpack. It doesn't add enough to add much. But this build, this armor goes with most builds. Like, you can probably make it work for everything, because vitality is used in every build. Even if you don't have much vitality, you're going to have vitality. And I always recommend having at least 40. You can get away with 30 with some builds, but you're going to die easy compared to everyone else. So I always recommend at least 40 vitality. And here's the other armor that works with every build. The Highborn armor is a light armor, and for some reason, this armor, when you put it on, has more armor than the armor I'm wearing, which is a medium armor. This armor, and it's light armor, so you can roll really fast. Like, for example, right now, this is medium rolling. It's pretty good, it's not bad. If I can click. Look at this. This is like ridiculously fast. And it has more armor than the Northwatch armors, which I was wearing a second ago. It's got no downside to it. It has a lot more armor than most things. It's not a heavy armor, but it counts. It's like a heavy armor that's a light armor. I don't know why they designed it that way, but there's no downside to it, and you can roll out of most attacks that are going to hit you. It's just the best armor by far. That's why I have it listed as OP Vitality Light. It's overpowered. So that's good for like everything, no matter what kind of build you are, because Vitality is always useful, light armor is great, and the armor on this thing is really high. So if you have this as an option, no brainer, that's what you want to use. This is the Vitality medium box. That's what I'm wearing, the Northwatch armor. I have an example of just like the weapons that come to mind when using it. I don't actually recommend Sanguis daggers, because those are PvE. Let me actually show that. So when it comes to PvE, it doesn't really matter what you use so long as you like it and it works for you. But there's a big reason why these are PvE daggers. So left click, right click, right click. If you notice, the right click is the first one when you start. It doesn't matter how many lights you do, it'll always do the first heavy and start the chain of the heavies from the first one, which is bad for PvP. I'll show you that in a second. But for PvE, this thing's great. Like, it just spins all the time. It causes lots of bleed and just grinds the crap out of things. It's flashy, you know, it's kind of cool. But it can't do this, the light heavy of a normal dagger, which is very important for PvP because you want to get in, get out, just repeatedly. You want to get in, get out, and bleed and all that. You can't do that with Sanguis. So Sanguis are just not good for PvP. The Frost Knight Commander set is similar to the same concept as the Northwatch armor, except that, well, it's a heavy armor, so you can't roll as fast. Gives you grit, which is good if you want extra grit without spending all the points for it. For example, I still have 44 vitality, and now I got all the way up to 42 grit with it. So, some people like their grit to be excessive. You can run farther, you can roll more times because of it. And what's really great about having extra grit is if you like axes, because axes take a lot of grit to swing, a lot of energy to swing, so having extra grit is nice. So it's not bad if you like having heavy armor and also like having extra grit, then this is not a bad idea. I personally don't prefer it, but some people do. This one is the one I'd be more likely to use for heavy armor, the Vanguard set. The Elite Pauldron of the Vanguard. It's basically just Vanguard is in every one of these. So this is a heavy armor that gives strength. This is great because it's the only armor for AOC that gives strength. No, it's not. It's the only one you should consider. Because right next to it is the... I have it labeled, just use Vanguard. The Knight Commander. So it also gives bonus strength. It gives the same amount of bonus strength as the Vanguard. But the problem with it is that it doesn't have as much armor as the Vanguard. So if you have a choice between the Knight Commander and the Vanguard set, just choose Vanguard, because you're going to get more armor out of it. So why wouldn't you? But the Vanguard set is great for tanky brawler types. So if you liked being in the face of your enemy or your PvE things, the monster you're hitting, and you want to hit as hard as possible, then this is the way to go. Let me just show you. Pull out the axe with, it gives plus 12 strength with an axe, so I have 62 strength, which does about 179 melee. Now I have 24 extra because of that armor, which gives me 198 melee right now. So it just boosts your damage, and it's like the only way to really boost your damage beyond 50 with the AOC armors is one of those two sets, and this is the set of those two I recommend. I still recommend having a backpack. I always recommend having a backpack just for the encumbrance, because things weigh a lot now, and it's just easier than trying to spend points here when you could be putting it towards something else. And this is the Damned set, which is a medium set for archery. Archery is the stat that goes for archers, obviously, where the accuracy is. I read that wrong. Accuracy goes for archery and magic. This is viable for magic too, if you use magic. I don't use magic myself, because it's very finicky in how to actually get it to work well, and I don't know, I just don't really care for the magic system, but the archery is pretty decent. I'm not going to get into archery into this, but if you are an archer or magic person, this is an armor set you should consider. If you want bonus archery, medium, I think this has a higher medium or higher armor for a medium set than some of the others, so this is not a bad idea if you like archery. And for archers, you don't really need strength. So if you just take all the strength and put it into archery, and then you have armor that boosts archery, you're going to hit harder. So that's an idea. On the other side, if you are also, archer or something, you can use this, the High Magus, for the bonus grit that it gives, because it takes a lot of energy to run around and fire all the time. Especially if you're into PvP, you're going to be running, turning around, shooting, and running away, turning around, shooting, and running away repeatedly a lot. So having grit's great. So if you feel you need more grit, but you just can't do it with your armor or with the other armor, this is a decent armor. I actually recommend this to a lot of people who are archer types. Also, if you use an axe, it takes a lot of energy, so that's why I have that in here. And daggers. What was I gonna say for this one? I don't remember. So this armor, the Sanguis, is very specific. Like, the only way I would use this, it has bonus agility, and like I said, you don't need to go past 10 agility for like anything. So the bonus agility is not that useful, but the armor itself is good. Let's see. 83% damage reduction, which is really good for a light armor, as long as it's not the highborn set that's overpowered that I told you about earlier. That one's just better than all armors, really. But 83% damage reduction for a light armor is pretty ridiculous, really. So the only reason I'd use this is if you just want the flat armor and to be armor class light. And it gives you, it would get you to the 10 agility, like right away, so you wouldn't have to put any points into agility. There's that. The only way I would use this is if I didn't have access to the highborn armor, and I was a dagger user, and I wanted to be able to be as optimal as possible with daggers. So wearing light armor, you can roll really quick, right? So you can get out really quick. So that's like the only reason. If I was a dagger person exclusively, then that's what I would probably choose if I didn't have the highborn set available. So I don't recommend this because it gives agility. You don't need much in agility, so it's not really worth it for that. And it's a medium armor, which is good, but if you're going to go for a medium armor to have medium armor, there's better ones, and with better stats. Like the Northwatch that I'm wearing right now, why would I choose agility over health when you don't need much agility, but you need a lot of health? So I just don't recommend the Tempest set at all. For the archer mages again, here's another one for light armor though. So it does bonus accuracy and light armor. The difference between this and the damned is that it's light versus medium. So if you want light armor, here you go. It gives you a little bit less armor, but it gives you the light armor class so you can roll faster. So it's just a matter of if you roll a lot or you prefer the light armor versus having just a little bit more armor with the medium. So really just your choice. This is also expensive, I'm pretty sure. Like, I think it takes a gem type, like arcane power gem or something to craft it. So I think it's pretty expensive. And I always forget this one exists. The Knight Commander with a N instead of a K, because the other one's also called Knight Commander. I don't know why they chose the same name. But this is a bonus accuracy medium armor, so it's very similar to the Damned set, and it's pretty much interchangeable. The difference being which faction you choose. Because if you're on a server where you don't have all factions, then obviously the choices are going to become a little bit more difficult. I'm just talking optimal across the board. Yep, pretty much the same thing as the Damned. So that's all of the armor types. Now, when it comes to choosing your armor type, you're going to want to go with a combination of the best armor class, like the heavy, medium, or light armor weight class that suits your style. You want to avoid heavy unless, well, you just like being able to hit and take a hit, and you're not quite worried about rolling and running as much, which you should be for PvP. But if you're like not quite there yet with the style for that, and you just want to hit hard, take hits, like this kind of build, then probably you would want a heavier armor, which I would recommend either the Frost set, the Frost Knight from Sanguis, or not Sanguis, from the Cold Embrace, the Elite Vanguard set from Vanguard, that's what their name is, which is the only one that's going to make you hit harder. Obviously, the Northwatch that I have on is decent, and the OP set is just always OP, so that's always a good one. But you won't hit harder with this one, so it depends on if you want to hit harder or not. When it comes to the... this one's also decent. So, for daggers, if you are a archer dagger type person, which is a lot of people tend to pair those because you don't need strength to use daggers. You're going to hit a little harder with strength, obviously. But the real thing about daggers is staying mobile and getting a swipe in and getting out. That's the primary thing about daggers. You're not trying to hit super hard. Your bleeds and your poisons are going to do most of the damage for you. And if you're with other people, you just want to be like disruptive and stagger someone while someone else hits them type thing. So archery and daggers go together well, because you don't need strength necessarily to make daggers work. In which case, I recommend something like more energy to run around more, which is the High Magus. Or this one, if you are really trying to be optimal with it and use all your skill to your fullest, which isn't easy, so it's really niche to use the light armor, because the bonus agility doesn't really help you. This is if you don't have Highborn available. Highborn's just going to be better. This also could be used with daggers, like if you're using archery or magic as your primary and you want daggers for a melee weapon, then this is also decent. When it comes to builds, you don't want a lot of strength unless you are trying to hit them with like anything that's not a dagger, really. So axes, swords, hammer, you know, all of those in-your-face melee weapons that you're trying to use. You want strength to do damage. If you're going for archery, obviously, you want the accuracy for archery, because this is the one that does more damage. You're not going to want strength and archery, most likely, because that's a lot of points into just damage, and that's not easy to pull off. It's not recommended, honestly. You can do it, but it's not going to be easy. I can go into the specifics of builds, but if you were comprehending the ideas behind the armors from before, then that should give you an idea of builds to do. Like, you want always somewhere between 30 to 40, 30 minimum. Like, if you're very confident you're not going to get hit, 30 vitality is alright, but I always recommend at least 40. And then strength, you know, if you want to do as much damage as possible whenever you hit someone, you want up at least 50 total, like including all weapons attached and in hand and armor. You want at least 50 usually. 40 minimally, like that's really difficult to do 40. Anything less than 40 and you're probably not using a melee weapon anymore, because it's not going to hit as hard as everyone else. But grit's good. If you are a dagger person, I highly recommend 50 grit, because you get the less stamina cost for rolling, and you're going to be rolling a lot with daggers. So if you're like a primary dagger guy, not even like archery included, like daggers are your thing, you're probably going to want the 50 grit, which is where you're definitely going to want a grit armor, because getting to 50 in anything is costly. But I think that is as much as I'm going to cover in this one, because this is already long, so probably put out another one about specifics and get into like the finer details of some things.